An interesting problem that I've been thinking for a long, long time is how do we regain our joy for learning? How exactly do we regain this childish curiosity? How exactly do we intelligently navigate through some of the constraints that we have to become truly curious, to become truly authentically motivated to learn, to become the sort of autodidacts that has these learning skills, that has these foundations for self-education? Because education system, you could say that you can learn some useful stuff in there, but the methodology or the epistemic foundation that they come from, this sort of industrialized bureaucracy, this is not at all, or partially, it's not at all conducive to you when you try to develop a curiosity for learning. I've seen people that went into the elite science school that I'm going to right now. I've seen people that before they went into the school, they were beaming with sort of this excitement, beaming with the possibility to learn, and beaming with this sort of infantile energy. I'm gonna be learning so much at this school, and I'm gonna be following my passion. I'm gonna really be studying hard, and then grasping with all these hard math and sciences, and doing all these nerdy stuff at school, and finishing all the assignments. I'm gonna be really, really on top of my game. But then when they enter the school, couple of weeks passed, couple of months pass, maybe a year passes, and you talk to that person again. Hey, how are you enjoying school? And the response that you get might shock you, because the initial energy that they have is completely gone. The initial excitement, so to speak, are completely deconstructed, demolished, at the very least, dissipated. So we've seen this phenomenon happening. People that really want to learn stuff, and they think that they can really learn it well at school through following some framework they think they can really instill it in their mind, they end up not being interested in the subject at all. They end up getting their passion slaughtered. They end up not really enjoying the coursework at all, having been placed into that frame or having been placed into that system. So the question that I'm posing right here is that how do we intelligently navigate through the obstacles that we have to regain that sort of curiosity, to regain that sort of passion for learning, to regain that sort of dominant value, to regain that sort of ancient Greek value for learning, the resistance to doxa, to think critically, and to become truly intelligent individuals, not just people that can regurgitate formulas and to do a bunch of physics equations and to do a bunch of math equations and recite a bunch of poetry without actually knowing how to understand the poetry, without actually learning the implications of the physics, without actually learning the implications of the mathematics, or perhaps appreciating the beauty of mathematics. That's the topic that we're going to address today. So there's a center of gravity here. There's a center of system and a center of homeostasis that we have to talk about before I offer you some constructive solutions. School is all about grades. Okay? School is all about grades. This is the dominant thing that schooling system is all about. Numbers, statistics, performance assessment. So you are reduced to a piece of statistic. That's just a fact. You are reduced on a scale. You are reduced to competitive objects, and you are objectified. And you are in a sense compared with all these other students. You are in a sense subjected to this vast sea of comparisons. That's the current fact that we're dealing with. There's no point fighting it. And there's no point criticizing it or ranting against it or try to demolish it. But what we can do is to realize that there is a problem within this frame of education. There is some sort of a glitch in the matrix. This is not exactly how things should work. This is not exactly the thing that we want when we talk about education. This is not exactly right. Something feels awfully wrong about this. So school is about grades, and that's a reality that you have to accept, not to resist. So given that school is about grades, how can we then release this sort of neurotic need for grades, release this sort of center of gravity? Release this sort of knee-jerk reaction to always pursue the grades? A common assumption that students have when they enter high school, university, is that if you do well in all your classes, if you achieve A all the way through, if you achieve a really high grade, then you're basically set for life. So there's basically this tendency for us to base our entire life's asset upon education, to base this entirety of self-identity and self-worth upon this train towards the rat race, upon this train of comparison, this train of the competitive nature of high school students, this train of pursuing higher and higher and higher grades, this orgy of getting into better and better and better universities. That is the dominant discourse that's happening within formal educational systems. That is the dominant thing that all students are trying to pursue. And that is the thing that is predominantly displacing the joy of learning. If you have this big dinosaur in a room, displacing all the space that you have to think, displacing all of which that you're really trying to become curious about and really trying to investigate, well, how else could you become curious? How else can you exactly read the books that you want? How else can you revive the joy of learning? Because your mind space has been so crammed up by all these notions of pursuing grades, of pursuing higher marks, of getting to the best university. You're basing your entire self-worth and your self-identity and your self-narrative upon these things that don't matter at the end. Of course you're going to feel down. Of course you're not going to feel curious. Of course you don't give a jack shit about the subjects that you're learning. Because all your mind is taken up by this dinosaur of a concept of pursuing higher grades. Whilst the rest of the mind space you devote to entertainment, devote to escapism, or devote to some recreational drugs, or devote to all these dysfunctional things because it's inevitable. School is too stressful. You're getting stressed over something that you don't exactly inherently care about. How else could you become motivated? And of course you have to use neurotic motivation. Of course you have to kick yourself in the ass. Of course this joy of learning is lost. And you have to use escapism behavior to counteract that. How do I know it? I'm one with the system. I'm within the system, and some of the stress that's experienced, it's really real. And I really do sympathize with the people that are about to enter this entire game, because it is a harsh game to play. And the dinosaur in the room really is displacing all of the curiosities that we have so that learning no longer turns into an authentic activity. And even worse than displacing the joy of curiosity, all of the crap that you learn at school, they're not exactly that useful. Schools don't exactly tell you how to manage a great relationship. They don't exactly tell you how to self-educate. They don't exactly tell you how to maintain a positive relationship. They don't exactly tell you how to manage your finances. They don't exactly tell you how to master your emotions. Don't exactly tell you the importance of meditation, the importance of accumulating life experience, the importance of grit, the importance of all these business concepts, accounting, economics, philosophy, spirodynamics, systems thinking. And also some of the dominant concepts within psychology, personal development, self-actualization, all these critical pillars that we need to live a good life aren't taught in school. If schools can displace this dinosaur in the room, if schools actually teach you useful stuff, fine. If they're actually conducive to living, fine. But the more that I study and the more that I play with the concepts, the more that I start to realize that most of the stuff that I learn right now, I'm not exactly going to use in the future. Not exactly. And a lot of the critical things, how to focus, how to develop mental capacity to face catastrophes, how to develop a strong psyche, how to develop a really rigid and strong character, all these things I couldn't really find in any corners of school. I couldn't really find within any peers around me. I couldn't really ask anybody about this, not even my parents. So I had to take on the burden of self-education to sort of pull against the gravity, to sort of push parts of the dinosaur out of the room, to sort of alleviate some of the room so that I can read a little more, so that I can invest some extra time and resources into buying some books, reading some books, taking notes of some books, keeping a good commonplace book. All these things, they have to be done independently, given that the system is not really conducive to that. So here's the solution. The reason why that we are losing this joy of learning is not an accident. All of us are losing this authentic passion of ours to learn. All of us are perhaps losing out on the joy of learning that would never ever get captured again. So this is a plea, really, and this is sort of a call to action. If you don't care about joy of learning, fine, end of this conversation. But if you do care about joy of learning, take the responsibility to educate yourself. Take the responsibility to read the books that you actually want to read. Right? Prioritize reading. If schoolwork is stressing you out, I'm not talking about throwing all the schoolwork away. We're still in the system. We're still talking in this 21st century. Well, you have to take on some personal responsibility. So if you want to read a book, if you want to pursue your curiosity, how about discipline yourself to read 30 minutes every morning of a subject that you care about? How about sacrificing some of the video games so you can go truly pursue some passion that you have, like filmmaking, like photography, for example, business, for example, technology, for example, coding, anything that you want. Sacrifice some of the things that you have to sacrifice in order to really recapture this thing that's wrongly lost. How about taking on the personal responsibility of reading the books about the most important concepts that you need to live a good life? Reading books on relationships, on self-help, not exactly self-help, but all the principles within psychology, self-actualization, economics, or some of the books on philosophy, or some of the books on timeless advice, some of the Stoic philosophy, which is one of my favorite, and some of the things that are actually going to help you down the road. Some of the timeless principles in business, in wealth, in personal success, and emotional mastery. How about taking on the responsibility of reading those on your own because your school is not teaching you that? How about taking on the responsibility of keeping a commonplace book so you have a repository of all these stuff that you've learned throughout the years? And how about physically developing yourself? Instead of reading a bunch of books just for the sake of it, well, take action upon the principles that you've learned from the books. Take actions upon the stuff that I talk about in these videos. Take action upon the things that aren't really taught in school. And take some drastic measures. Well, if you had never meditated before, maybe attend a 7 days meditation retreat. Or if you've never exercised before, maybe go for a run one morning. If you've never done anything before, try it out without getting constricted by some higher voice or by this dinosaur in the room. And at the end, you have to bite the bullet by all costs, or despite the costs, revive your joy for learning. Revive the sort of Renaissance spirit and revive this polymath spirit, autodidacticism. Be a self-taught genius. Self-learned, self-taught. Maintain your curiosity throughout the entirety of your schooling career, whilst intelligently navigating through the sort of laboriousness within the system. And also to view the laboriousness of the system as an act of character building. So I'm not talking about throwing out all your schooling, but that's not really practical, nor is it that conducive to your personal growth. Navigate through the system and to view the laborious tasks at school as character building. And somehow integrate self-education into the mix so you have this entire shebang of curiosity, self-education, character building, social relationships, reading all these really timeless advice from philosophy, from self-help, from psychology. Somehow integrate all of them together and turn yourself into a modern polymath. That's something that I'm really excited to talk more about in the future. So this is just an invitation for you to join me as an autodidact. Invitation for you to become a self-taught genius. Invitation for you to master yourself. Invitation for you to capture what's being wrongly lost. And this is the Quirky Inquiry, signing off right now.